Welcome back, my Destiny dudes. It's a time for another PvP tips and tactics video. This is officially video number 5. The purpose of these videos is to get you guys feeling more confident, more comfortable in the competitive PvP playlist so that you can hopefully get this emblem that's available new every single season. Now, before we go any further, if you guys have not seen the previous videos, they all lead up into what we're currently doing. There's skills and drills that you can do and take from those videos so that you know, as a new player all the way up to a pro player, what it is that you need to develop and look for and practice so that you're a little bit more capable, a little bit more aware, and hopefully feeling more confident as you go into the playlist so that you can get this emblem or do better in trials, whichever one is up for you guys that you're interested in. Alright, now before we go any further, I want to mention the sponsor of this channel, Prestige Labs. Prestige Labs is the sponsor of this channel. If you guys click the description link down below, you'll get 40% off your products, up to 51% if you actually go with their subscription package. So it's really good for strength, conditioning, weight loss, and gamers, I believe, need a lot more of that than we are allowing ourselves to believe. So let's get behind Prestige Labs. Click on the link in the description below. The first tip that I want to cover today is ego, and you need to check your ego at the door. Now, there's two main points to this that I want to cover, but first, the definition of it is that you have a lot of self-esteem or self-importance. Well, that's good to have self-esteem, and I've also been preaching having confidence. The problem is when that gets in your way. Now, let me give you an example. If you are playing in a competitive match and you do a flank, let's say that match is Showdown. Showdown, you're allowed to revive your teammates. If you're playing Showdown and you flank and you have a successful flank, great. If that team were to then collapse on the single red dot radar, being you, the flanker, the second time around, and they get you, you're now no longer near your teammates, they cannot revive you, you put yourself in a bad probability situation. So think of it this way, if you do the flank once and it works, you try it again, it doesn't work, do not let your ego get the better of you to try that a third time. They've already made the call out to look for the flanker. So we need to make sure that we keep that ego in check so that you do not become a problem to your teammates. The second part to this, I see a lot with my athletes. They are a lot of the time incredibly good players. We call them key players. The problem with the key player is that they tend to drive down the self-esteem of the entire group because they want to be seen as the hero or they want to be seen as the one that everyone has to go to. Now, it's good that you're skilled, it's good that you're talented, but if that skill, talent is getting in the way of your team being successful, but your KD is great, you still lost, and nobody cares. Get your ego out of the way. Let your teammates work with you, and you need to be more adaptable in such a way that you're not losing matches because you're ego challenging lanes, because you're allowing yourself to be baited. You know, you get the guy one time, but he got you 5, that type of situation. That's what we're trying to avoid. So, ego, get it out of the way, think more adaptively, and think more along the lines of you're going to win or you're going to learn. And if you let your ego get in the way, it's probably going to destroy your team dynamic, and that just brings everybody else down. So, that's tip number 1. Going into tip number 2, it actually stacks on top of tip number 1. And if you guys have watched my previous videos, which I highly recommend you do, you'll understand that these all stack off of each other. They're just at different progressive levels. So, the next one is controlling tilt. Now, if you've got an ego and you challenge and you get destroyed because you weren't smart enough to figure out that you should not have been letting your ego get the best of you, a lot of the times you get put on something that's called tilt. And being in a tilted mood is something that other teams will absolutely take advantage of. I know I certainly do when I'm trying to play competitively. People will begin teabagging you or something of that nature. Controlling tilt, all that means is that you let the little things go and you think and adapt to what has to happen next. A good example that I can give you. Tilt tends to happen in this game when people are using a loadout that you don't agree with. And in comp, that's going to happen all the time. Now, I've actually found lately it's been worse in 6s. There's way more skill in comp, people using weapons that are actually pretty skillful, and they're using them in a very skillful way. So I like that, it's unique. But there are teams that are going to try to tilt you by having a very non-skilled loadout. And the goal of that is to get you to play in a very reckless manner, and that is how they beat you. Now, you can complain about the Titan running the overshield mixed in with the sliding whatever it is that reflects bullets back at you, or you can change what you're doing, adapt, and make him play your game and beat him. Only one of those is going to get you the win. Complaining about him doesn't help you at all. Putting you on tilt is to his advantage, and he knows it. So, he's going to play in whatever way he needs to get in your head. That's why people teabag, it's why they send, horribly angry messages, it's why they challenge people in ways that they shouldn't because it doesn't make sense, but it does get in your head and cause tilt. and that is incredibly effective at getting them a emotional advantage. Same thing happens in sports. In baseball, you remember when you were a kid, they teach you to say, hey, batter, batter, when you're trying to get in someone's head so that he can't hit the pitch. Same thing in gaming and esports, is just a different type of thing, right? So that's the next tip, is to learn to control your tilt so that you do not have a negative impact on your team, giving you a greater chance of winning the match. All right, so that's 2 tips down. Let's move on to the last one. The last one is based on the newbie tip of survivability. It's to practice disengagement. Now that sounds a little bit funny because I don't want you out of the fight. You do need to play with your team. What I want is for you to survive the fight. And the best way to learn how to survive a fight is by practicing disengagement, meaning you go in there with the intention of disengaging if you think it's not to your advantage. So it's going to happen a lot where you are destroyed in a gun battle because you misread the situation. That's something we all suffer from, right? But what I want you to learn is what I want you to learn how to react to is when there's a 2v1 or a sniper that holds a lane really, really well, then instead of ego challenging, and instead of getting yourself on a bad foot so that you're tilted, you begin in a disengagement so that you can then redirect, take a different position, put radar pressure, or something that is better than dying and hurting your ego and getting you on tilt, thus giving you less of a chance of winning the match. So if you do not have the upper hand, if you do not get first shot, if someone's great at sniping and you see that bright red light holding a lane, disengage. If somebody is better than you are, or you're in a 2v1 situation, practice disengagement. That way you survive, and that's going to get you further in comp than anything else. It's hard to practice that because I know a lot of people that will chase somebody down that's one shot. You hear that a lot, but you're also weak. Or even if you're not, you tend to chase them down, but they lead you right into their teammates. That's a bait, so you have to learn how to recognize that. Learning when to disengage is incredibly important, and it's something that I think a lot of you need to practice more often. Now, I'm not talking about sniping or scout rifling at the edge of the map in the corner of the oblivion, but I do want you to recognize when you're in a bad situation so you can disengage from it and live. Alright, so just to recap, my dudes, we've got tip number 1, which is check your ego at the door. Remember, that's too high of self-esteem, and a lot of the times that self-esteem can become negative to the group, especially if you're sitting there trying to play hero all the time. We got tip number 2, which is to practice not being tilted, which I know that sounds a little bit funny, but try not to tilt, because if you have an ego and you go challenge, you get killed. I usually see people tend to get tilted and they scream at their teammates or anybody else in the world, and it tends to cause a big negative conflict on the team itself. Then the last one is to practice disengagement. So being in an engagement that is optimal for you and your teammate is what you're looking for. Making sure that you keep your ego in check, don't let yourself get tilted or impatient, and then getting to a situation where you're not in a 2v1 or you're not challenging a bright red light of a sniper is how you can practice disengagement. Knowing what to look for takes experience, but with enough time and now understanding what those are, you'll have a better skill set of survival so that you can help your team out and not be another useless death on the radar. Alright, my dudes, that is it for this video. I hope you guys are finding these helpful, useful in any capacity. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. I love all you guys. Make sure you keep it zen out there, and I'll see you in the next one.